The galactic cycle 7X 392 would forever be etched in the annals of both human and alien history. It began like any other day on Earth: traffic jams in megalopolises, children complaining about homework, and politicians arguing over trivial matters. Little did they know that high above their atmosphere, a colossal fleet of warships had just materialized from the depths of space. Admiral Krozak of the Vexthalian Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Worldbreaker. His 6 eyes blinked in rapid succession as he gazed upon the blue-green orb below. "Finally!" he bellowed, his voice reverberating through the command deck. "After centuries of conquest, we've found a world worthy of our attention." Lieutenant Mira, his second-in-command, approached with a data pad. "My lord, preliminary scans indicate a technologically advanced civilization. They call themselves humans." Krozak's mandibles clicked in amusement. Humans? What a pathetic name for a species. "Tell me, Mira, what defenses do these humans possess?" Myra's tentacles waved nervously as she scrolled through the data. "They have a rudimentary orbital defense network, scattered military bases, and... oh, this is interesting. A significant portion of their population consists of juvenile specimens they call children." Children? Krozak's exoskeleton bristled with curiosity. "Explain." "Immature humans, my lord. They spend years in a vulnerable state, requiring protection and education before reaching full capability." A cruel laugh escaped Krozak's throat sacs. "Weakness. We've stumbled upon a planet of weaklings. This conquest will be over before it begins." As the Vexthalian fleet prepared for their assault, life on Earth continued in blissful ignorance. In the small town of Millbrook, 12-year-old Zephyr Quasar sat in her treehouse, tinkering with her latest invention, a cobbled-together communicator she swore could pick up alien transmissions. "Come on, you piece of junk," Zephyr growled, smacking the side of the device. Suddenly, it crackled to life, emitting a series of strange, guttural sounds. Her eyes widened. No way. It actually worked? Meanwhile, in the bustling city of Neo-Tokyo, 14-year-old Ren Stormheart was busy hacking into his school's grading system. Just a few more lines of code and, yes, perfect attendance for everyone. Across the globe, in the Amazon Rainforest Research Station, 10-year-old twins Aura and Nova Lightfoot were assisting their parents with a groundbreaking experiment on plant communication. "Mom, Dad, the sensors are going crazy," Aura shouted, pointing at a screen filled with erratic readings. Dr. Alara Lightfoot frowned, adjusting her glasses. "That's impossible. It's as if every plant in the forest is screaming at once." Her husband, Dr. Orion Lightfoot, paled as he looked at his own instruments. "It's not just the plants, dear. Something massive just entered our orbit. Multiple somethings." As the first reports of strange objects in the sky began to trickle in, the world's governments scrambled to make sense of the situation. In Washington, D.C., President Axel Thunderbolt received the news with a mix of disbelief and dread. "You're telling me we have an alien armada parked above our planet, and our first warning came from civilian reports on social media?" he roared at his assembled advisors. General Stella Novaforge, Chief of Staff, stepped forward. "Mr. President, we're mobilizing every available unit, but our orbital defenses are untested against this level of technology. We need time to dash." She was cut off as every screen in the Situation Room flickered to life, displaying the grotesque, insectoid face of Admiral Krozak. "Humans!" The alien's voice boomed, translated into every language on Earth simultaneously. "I am Admiral Krozak of the Vexthalian Empire. Your planet is OURS for the taking. Surrender now, and we may spare your pathetic offspring. Resist, and we will crush you beneath our feet." As the transmission ended, a deathly silence fell over the room. President Thunderbolt's fists clenched at his sides. "Like hell we will," he growled. "General Novaforge, initiate Operation Stardust. And someone get me every scientific mind we have on speed dial. We're going to need a miracle to get out of this one." Little did the president know, the miracle he sought was already in motion. In bedrooms, treehouses, and playgrounds across the globe, children like Zephyr, Ryan, Aura, and Nova were about to prove that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its weapons or technology, but in the boundless imagination and tenacity of its youngest generation. As the Vexthalian ships began their descent, piercing the Earth's atmosphere with a thunderous roar, the future of humanity hung in the balance. The invasion had begun, and the fate of the world now rested in the hands of those the aliens considered weakest, the children of Earth. The skies darkened as the Vexthalian warships descended upon Earth's major cities. In Millbrook, Zephyr Quasar clutched her makeshift communicator, heart pounding as she watched the alien vessels blot out the sun. "Holy crap!" she exclaimed, fumbling with her device. "I've got to warn someone." Miles away, in Neo-Tokyo, Ren Stormheart stood transfixed at his bedroom window, watching as a massive ship hovered over the neon-lit skyline. "This is so not cool," he muttered, fingers flying across his custom-built quantum tablet. "Time to see what these ET creeps are made of." In the Amazon, Aura and Nova Lightfoot huddled with their parents in the research station's panic room. Dr. Alara Lightfoot's voice trembled as she spoke. "Kids, whatever happens, remember that knowledge is power. Your father and I have been studying interspecies communication for years. Maybe that can help us somehow." Dr. Orion Lightfoot nodded grimly. "Your mother's right. We need to observe, learn, and find a way to communicate. It might be our only chance." As chaos erupted across the globe, the Vexthalian ground forces began their assault. Towering insectoid warriors, clad in biomechanical armor, stormed through the streets. Their weapons fired pulses of energy that reduced buildings to rubble and vehicles to molten slag. Admiral Krozak's voice boomed from every communication device on the planet. "Humans, your pitiful defenses crumble before us. Surrender your young, and we may show mercy." In Washington, D.C., President Thunderbolt grimaced as he watched the live feeds of destruction. "Like hell we will," he growled. Turning to General Novaforge, he barked, "Status report." The general's face was grim. "Sir, our conventional weapons are barely scratching their armor. We've lost contact with half our bases worldwide." "But," she hesitated. "But what, General? Spit it out." "We're receiving reports of unexpected resistance, sir. Civilians, mostly children, are fighting back in ways we couldn't have predicted." Meanwhile, in Millbrook, Zephyr had climbed to the highest point of her treehouse. She aimed her communicator at the nearest Vexthalian ship and began broadcasting on all frequencies. "Hey, you big buggy bullies," she shouted. "Why don't you pick on someone your own size?" To her astonishment, the ship's trajectory faltered. Inside, a confused Vexthalian technician turned to his superior. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's gibberish." The commander snarled, "Isolate and destroy the source." As the ship turned towards Zephyr's position, she gulped. Oh, maybe that wasn't such a good idea after all. In Neo-Tokyo, Ren had managed to hack into the alien communication network. His eyes widened as he deciphered their battle plans. "They're targeting our power grids," he realized. Without hesitation, he began flooding the Vexthalian systems with contradictory commands and false data. Aboard the Worldbreaker, Admiral Krozak raged as reports of malfunctions and communication breakdowns poured in. What is the meaning of this? How can these primitive creatures interfere with our superior technology? Lieutenant Mira approached cautiously. "My lord, it appears the humans are more resourceful than we anticipated, especially their young." Krozak's mandibles clicked furiously. "Impossible. These children are supposed to be helpless, useless. How are they resisting?" Back in the Amazon, Aura and Nova had convinced their parents to let them try communicating with the local flora. "If we can understand the plants," Aura explained, "maybe we can use them to confuse the aliens." Dr. Alara looked skeptical but nodded. "It's worth a shot. What have we got to lose?" As the twins connected their neural interfaces to the forest's root network, they felt a surge of ancient, primal energy. Nova gasped, "The trees! They're angry." Suddenly, the jungle around them came alive. Vines whipped through the air, ensnaring Vexthalian soldiers. Massive tree roots erupted from the ground, toppling alien war machines. A Vexthalian captain watched in horror as his troops were swallowed by the vengeful forest. "This is madness," he screamed into his calm. "The planet itself fights against us." As reports of setbacks and unexpected resistance flooded in from around the world, Admiral Krozak's confidence began to waver. "How is this possible?" he roared. "They're just humans. Weak, pathetic humans." Lieutenant Mira studied the incoming data, her tentacles twitching nervously. "My lord, I believe we may have underestimated them, especially their offspring." Krozak's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "The children, sir. They seem to possess a creativity and adaptability that we didn't account for. Our simulations never predicted this level of ingenuity." As the Vexthalian invasion force struggled to maintain control, pockets of human resistance began to form around the globe. Led by quick-thinking children and supported by adults who recognized their unique abilities, these groups started to push back against the alien conquerors. In the White House Situation Room, a glimmer of hope began to shine through the chaos. General Novaforge approached the president, a hint of a smile on her face. "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but we're starting to see a pattern. The most effective resistance? It's coming from our kids." President Thunderbolt's eyebrows shot up. "Our children? Are you telling me the fate of our world rests in the hands of middle schoolers?" The general nodded, her expression a mix of pride and disbelief. "It appears so, sir. And frankly, they're doing a hell of a job." As the first day of the invasion drew to a close, the Vexthalian Empire found itself in an unprecedented situation. What should have been a quick and easy conquest had turned into a frustrating quagmire. And at the heart of their troubles were the very beings they had dismissed as weak and useless, Earth's children. Admiral Krozak glared at the view screen, watching as another of his ships retreated from a city now protected by an impenetrable dome of shimmering energy, the work of a 13-year-old physics prodigy and her scientist parents. "This isn't over," he snarled. "We'll show these humans, all of them, the true might of the Vexthalian Empire. Prepare for Phase 2 of the invasion. We'll see how well their precious offspring fare against the Mindbreakers." As night fell across the battle-scarred planet, humanity clung to a fragile hope. The invasion had been slowed, but the war was far from over. And as both sides prepared for the next round of conflict, one thing became clear. The children of Earth were about to face their greatest challenge yet. As dawn broke on the second day of the Vexthalian invasion, Earth's population awoke to a world forever changed. Smoke billowed from ruined cities, alien warships loomed in the skies, and the air crackled with an otherworldly energy that set teeth on edge. Admiral Krozak stood before his war council, 6 eyes blazing with fury. "The time for subtlety is over," he roared. "Deploy the Mindbreakers. Let's see how these insufferable human larvae fare against psychic warfare." In Millbrook, Zephyr Quasar jolted awake, her head pounding. "What the? Yikes!" she yelped, realizing she'd fallen asleep in her treehouse. As she rubbed her eyes, a piercing shriek filled the air. Zephyr clapped her hands over her ears, but the sound seemed to come from inside her own head. "Oh no," she groaned. "They've gone all Inception on us." Across the globe, children and adults alike reeled under the psychic assault. In Neo-Tokyo, Ren Stormheart gritted his teeth as he furiously typed on his quantum tablet. Come on," he muttered. "If I can just isolate the frequency." Suddenly, his bedroom door burst open. His little sister, Yuki, stood there, tears streaming down her face. "Run. Make it stop." Ren's eyes widened. Without hesitation, he yanked out his earbuds and shoved them into Yuki's ears. The girl's sobs quieted almost instantly. "Noise-canceling algorithm," Ren explained with a grim smile. "Looks like it works on alien mindwaves too. Now, let's see if we can broadcast this bad boy citywide." In the Amazon, Aura and Nova Lightfoot huddled with their parents, trying desperately to block out the psychic screams. Dr. Alara Lightfoot's face was etched with pain, but her eyes sparked with determination. "Kids," she gasped, "remember what we learned about plant communication? The mycelial network, it might shield us." Dr. Orion nodded weakly. "Worth a shot." Anything's better than this." The twins shared a look of understanding. Together, they placed their hands on the nearest tree root and closed their eyes. Gradually, a sense of calm washed over them as the ancient forest embraced their minds, shielding them from the alien assault. Nova's eyes snapped open. It worked. But, oh no, what about everyone else? Aura squeezed her sister's hand. "We'll find a way to help them. We have to." Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., the situation was dire. President Thunderbolt stumbled through the halls of a fortified bunker, his mind reeling from the psychic attack. "Status report," he barked at a group of haggard-looking advisors. General Nova Forge stepped forward, her usual composure cracking under the strain. "It's bad, sir. The Mindbreakers are targeting population centers worldwide. Our troops are paralyzed, and civilian panic is reaching critical levels." The president's fists clenched. "And our young heroes? Any word from them?" A junior officer piped up, her voice tinged with awe. "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but we're getting reports of resistance. Pockets of calm in the chaos, all centered around children." President Thunderbolt's eyebrows shot up. "Explain. Now." The officer tapped her tablet, bringing up a global map dotted with glowing points of light. Each of these spots represents an area where the psychic attack seems to be neutralized. And in every case, it's thanks to the ingenuity of kids. As if on cue, screens around the room flickered to life, showing scenes from around the world. In Millbrook, Zephyr had rigged her alien communicator to broadcast a counter-frequency, creating a bubble of protection around her neighborhood. In Neo-Tokyo, Ren's noise-canceling algorithm had been adopted by the city's tech-savvy youth, spreading through social media like wildfire. And in the Amazon, Aura and Nova were teaching other children to connect with the forest, expanding their psychic shield kilometer by kilometer. President Thunderbolt's jaw dropped. "Well, I'll be damned. These kids they're saving us." Back on the Worldbreaker, Admiral Krozak received the news of humanity's resistance with increasing rage. "Impossible!" he screeched, smashing a control panel with one of his chitinous limbs. "How are they doing this? They're children. Weak, useless larvae." Lieutenant Mira approached cautiously, her tentacles twitching nervously. "My lord, perhaps we should consider retreat?" Krozak's head whipped around, all six eyes focusing on his subordinate with murderous intent. "Retreat? The Vexthalian Empire does not retreat, especially not from a bunch of sniveling human whelps." He stomped to the ship's main viewport, glaring down at the planet below. "No, we will not retreat. We will escalate. Prepare the Worldbreaker for planetfall. If these humans want to protect their young so badly, let's see how they fare when we strip their world bare." As alarms blared throughout the massive ship, signaling its descent towards Earth, a sense of dread settled over the invasion force. Many of the Vexthalian soldiers, hardened by years of conquest, found themselves questioning their mission for the first time. How could mere human children resist them so effectively? On Earth, the psychic assault began to wane as more and more children found ways to counter it. But the relief was short-lived. As the Worldbreaker broke through the atmosphere, casting a shadow larger than some countries, a new wave of panic swept the globe. In the Amazon, Dr. Alara Lightfoot's eyes widened as she studied readings from their atmospheric sensors. "Oh no," she breathed. "Kids, that ship, it's not just here to attack. It's designed to strip our atmosphere." Aura and Nova shared a look of determination. "Then we'll just have to stop it," Aura declared. Nova nodded, a fierce glint in her eye. "Yeah, Earth is our planet. No overgrown bugs are going to take it from us." As the Worldbreaker descended, humanity faced its darkest hour. But all across the planet, children were rising to the challenge, their minds unburdened by the limitations adults often placed on themselves. In bedrooms, treehouses, and secret bases, young heroes prepared for the fight of their lives. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and the next few hours would determine whether humanity would survive or become just another conquered world in the Vexthalian Empire's long history of destruction. Little did Admiral Krozak know, he was about to learn a harsh lesson. Never underestimate the power of a child's imagination, especially when the fate of their world is at stake. The Worldbreaker's descent sent shockwaves across the planet. Tidal waves crashed against coastlines, earthquakes rattled cities, and storms of unprecedented fury whipped around the globe. As the massive ship settled into low orbit, its true purpose became horrifyingly clear. Massive vents opened along the Worldbreaker's hull, and a sickly green energy began to pulse outward. Earth's atmosphere visibly rippled, and people everywhere gasped for breath as the air itself seemed to thin. In the White House bunker, alarms blared as environmental readings went haywire. President Thunderbolt's face was ashen as he turned to his advisors. How long? General Novaforge's voice was grim. At this rate, 12 hours before our atmosphere is stripped to lethal levels. Maybe less. The president's fist slammed onto the table. Damn it. We need options, people. What about our young heroes? A nervous aide spoke up. Sir, we're receiving transmissions from children all over the world. They're organizing, sir. Planning a counterattack. President Thunderbolt's eyebrows shot up. A counterattack? Against that? He gestured at the looming image of the Worldbreaker. It's suicide. General Novaforge placed a hand on the president's shoulder. With all due respect, sir, what choice do we have? Our conventional weapons are useless. These kids, they're our last hope. In Millbrook, Zephyr Quasar had turned her treehouse into a command center. Surrounded by cobbled-together tech and hand-drawn plans, she spoke into her modified alien communicator. Okay, team, here's the sitch. We've got a big, ugly bug ship trying to steal our air. Any ideas? Through the static came Ren's voice from Neo Tokyo. I've been analyzing their tech. That ship's got to have some kind of central processor. If we can overload it... That was Aura, patching in from the Amazon. What if we use the planet's electromagnetic field? Like, turn Earth into one giant EMP. Zephyr's eyes lit up. That's brilliant. But how do we generate enough power? Nova's voice chimed in. The forest. We can channel energy through the root systems. It's like Earth's own nervous system. As the children brainstormed, their plan taking shape, adults around the world watched in awe. Scientists, engineers, and military strategists found themselves taking notes from preteens. Aboard the Worldbreaker, Admiral Krozak surveyed his impending victory with smug satisfaction. See, Lieutenant Mira, this is how you conquer a species. No more of this ground combat nonsense. We simply take what we need and leave them to suffocate. Myra's tentacles writhed uneasily. But sir, what about the human children? They've proven remarkably adaptable. Krozak's mandibles clicked in irritation. Enough about these larvae. What can they possibly do against the might of our dash? Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Krozak whirled to face the main view screen. What's happening? A technician's voice quavered. My lord, we're detecting a massive energy buildup on the planet's surface. It's everywhere. On Earth, the plan was in motion. In the Amazon, Aura and Nova stood with their parents at the heart of the rainforest, their hands pressed against an ancient tree. Ready? Aura asked. Nova nodded grimly. Let's show these bugs what Earth can do. As one, they closed their eyes and pushed. Energy surged through the vast network of roots and fungal threads, spreading across continents and beneath oceans. In Neo Tokyo, Ren's fingers flew across his quantum tablet, coordinating the efforts of tech-savvy kids worldwide. All right, people, on my mark. Now. Across the globe, children activated homemade devices, tapping into power grids, satellite networks, and even school science labs. The energy harvested from the planet's core surged through these makeshift conduits, amplified and focused. Zephyr stood atop her treehouse, her alien communicator modified into a bizarre antenna. Here goes nothing, she shouted, flipping the final switch. The effect was immediate and awe-inspiring. A visible wave of energy erupted from the Earth's surface, rippling upward through the atmosphere. The Worldbreaker, caught in its path, shuddered violently. Inside the massive ship, chaos reigned. Control panels exploded in showers of sparks, artificial gravity failed, and the horrific sound of tearing metal echoed through the corridors. Admiral Krozak clung to his command chair, all 6 eyes wide with disbelief. What are these creatures? Lieutenant Myra's voice was filled with a mix of terror and grudging admiration. They're humanity, sir, and I think we may have made a terrible mistake. As the electromagnetic pulse ripped through the world-breaker systems, the ship's atmospheric extraction beams flickered and died. Huge chunks of the vessel's outer hull peeled away, raining down as artificial meteors. On Earth, cheers erupted as the world-breaker visibly listed in the sky. But the celebration was short-lived. Zephyr's voice crackled over the global communication network the children had cobbled together. Guys, we've wounded it, but that thing's still airborne. If it crashes, Ren's voice cut in. The impact could devastate the planet. We need to control its descent. Nova chimed in, her voice strained from the effort of channeling the planet's energy. But how? We've used up almost everything we had in that blast. For a moment, silence fell over the network. Then, a new voice spoke up, young, uncertain, but filled with determination. It was Yuki, Ren's little sister. What if we caught it? Ren's surprise was audible. Yuki? What do you mean, catch it? Like in my video games. Yuki explained, excitement building in her voice. When you have to stop a big falling thing, you don't hit it. You slow it down. What if we used, like, giant cushions? There was a beat of silence, then Zephyr's laughter rang out. Yuki, you're a genius. All right, team, you heard the lady. We need the biggest cushions in history. Who's got ideas? As the world-breaker began its uncontrolled descent, humanity's children rallied for one final, desperate gambit. The fate of the world hung in the balance, with victory or annihilation only minutes away. In Washington, D.C., President Thunderbolt listened to the children's plan with a mix of hope and trepidation. General, he said quietly, if we survive this, remind me to rewrite every rule we have about age restrictions. These kids, they're redefining what it means to be a hero. General Novaforge nodded, a fierce pride shining in her eyes. Yes, sir, they certainly are. As the world-breaker plummeted towards Earth, leaving a trail of fire in its wake, humanity held its collective breath. The next few moments would determine the fate of not just their planet, but of 2 civilizations. And at the heart of it all were the very beings both sides had underestimated, Earth's children. The Worldbreaker, once a symbol of Vexthalian might, now plummeted towards Earth like a massive, burning meteor. Its hull glowed red-hot from atmospheric entry, and pieces of alien technology rained down across continents. In Millbrook, Zephyr Quasar's Treehouse Command Center was a flurry of activity. Her modified communicator crackled with voices from around the world as children coordinated their last-ditch effort to save the planet. Okay, team. Zephyr shouted over the din. We need ideas for the biggest cushion in history. And we need them now. Ren's voice came through, tinged with excitement. What about buildings? If we could inflate them somehow? Ooh. Aura chimed in from the Amazon. We could use the plants. Make them grow super fast to create a natural cushion, Nova added. And we could redirect ocean currents to create massive water spouts, like giant water pillows. Yuki, newfound confidence in her voice, suggested, what if we used clouds? Make them super puffy and thick. Zephyr's eyes lit up. Yes, all of it. We'll need everything we've got. Ran, you and your tech team focus on the cities. Aura, Nova, you've got nature covered. Yuki, get every kid with a science kit working on cloud seeding. I'll coordinate from here. Let's move, people. As the children's plan sprang into action, adults around the world found themselves taking orders from preteens and teenagers. Scientists worked alongside grade schoolers, engineers collaborated with middle schoolers, and military personnel found themselves saluting high schoolers. In Neo-Tokyo, Ren stood atop the city's tallest skyscraper, his quantum tablet interfaced with the building systems. All right, everyone. On my mark, we inflate. Across the city, children activated homemade devices connected to building ventilation systems. With a tremendous groan, skyscrapers began to swell, their walls stretching like giant balloons. In the Amazon, Aura and Nova stood back to back, their hands pressed against ancient trees. "Ready, sis?" Aura asked. Nova nodded grimly. "Let's make Jack's beanstalk look like a weed." As one, they pushed with their minds. The forest around them erupted in a frenzy of growth. Trees shot skyward at impossible speeds, vines thickened to the size of highways, and leaves expanded to the size of football fields. All around the globe, Yuki's cloud seeding initiative took effect. Children launched homemade rockets, released weather balloons, and even used jury-rigged leaf blowers to disperse cloud seeding particles into the atmosphere. The sky darkened as clouds grew and thickened at an alarming rate. Meanwhile, naval ships, directed by young tacticians, maneuvered into position. Massive pumps, many improvised from firefighting equipment, began to churn the oceans. Huge spouts of water rose into the air, creating a network of liquid pillars. As humanity's last defense took shape, the Worldbreaker entered the final stage of its descent. Inside the failing ship, Admiral Krozak clung to the remains of his command chair. His exoskeleton cracked and his pride shattered. "This is impossible," he screeched. "We are the Vexthalian Empire. We cannot be defeated by children." Lieutenant Mira, her tentacles wrapped around a support beam, gazed at the approaching planet with a mix of fear and awe. "Perhaps, my lord, we have something to learn from these humans." On Earth, Zephyr's voice rang out over the global communication network. "It's entering the lower atmosphere. Brace for impact." The Worldbreaker struck the first line of defense, the thickened cloud layer. Its descent slowed fractionally, but the clouds alone weren't enough. Next came the massive water spouts, which burst against the ship's hull in explosive collisions of steam and twisted metal. As the ship plunged lower, it encountered the hyper-accelerated forest growth. Gargantuan trees groaned and snapped under the impact, but they further reduced the Worldbreaker's momentum. Finally, the ship reached the outskirts of Neo-Tokyo, where inflated skyscrapers stood like massive shock absorbers. The Worldbreaker's remnants slammed into this last line of defense with a sound that could be heard around the world. For a moment, everything seemed to hang in perfect, terrifying stillness. Then, with a collective groan of overtaxed materials, the inflated buildings began to deflate, lowering the shattered remains of the once mighty alien vessel to the ground. As the dust settled, an eerie silence fell across the globe. Then, slowly, incredulously, cheers began to rise. From city streets to rural villages, from the halls of government to schoolyards, the cry went up, "We did it! We won!" In the White House bunker, President Thunderbolt stared at the screens in disbelief. "My God," he whispered, "they actually pulled it off." General Novaforge, tears in her eyes, saluted the images of celebrating children. "Yes, sir. They saved us all." Back in Millbrook, Zephyr slumped against her treehouse wall, exhaustion and elation warring on her face. Her communicator crackled one last time as Ren's voice came through. "Hey, Zeph, you think we can use this for our science fair project?" Laughter erupted across the network as the tension of the past few days finally broke. They had faced the greatest threat in human history, and they had triumphed. As news of the victory spread, the children who had led humanity's defense found themselves hailed as heroes. But for Zephyr, Ran, Aura, Nova, Yuki, and countless others, the real victory was simpler. They had protected their home, their families, and their future. In the wreckage of the Worldbreaker, Admiral Krozak and the surviving Vexthalians found themselves surrounded by Earth's military forces. But it wasn't soldiers who approached them first. Instead, a group of children, led by Zephyr and her friends, stepped forward. Zephyr, her homemade communicator in hand, addressed the alien leader. "So, big guy, ready to talk about peace? Or do we need to show you what else we can do with our science fair projects?" As humans and Vexthalians alike held their breath, Admiral Krozak realized that his empire had fundamentally misunderstood this species. In the children of Earth, he saw not weakness, but a strength and adaptability that his own civilization had lost long ago. Slowly, hesitantly, Admiral Krozak extended a clawed limb in a gesture of peace. "Perhaps," he chittered, "we have much to learn from each other." As Zephyr shook the alien's claw, A new chapter in Earth's history began, one where humanity's place in the galaxy would be defined not by the strength of its weapons, but by the boundless imagination and spirit of its youngest generation. The Vexthalian invasion was over, but Earth's adventure among the stars was just beginning. The days following the Worldbreaker's crash landing were a whirlwind of activity. As the dust settled, literally and figuratively, humanity found itself facing an unprecedented situation. First contact had become first coexistence. In a hastily constructed compound near the Worldbreaker's crash site, Zephyr Quasar paced back and forth, her modified communicator clutched tightly in her hand. "This is crazy," she muttered. "Yesterday we were fighting them, and now we're supposed to play nice?" Ren's voice crackled through the device. "Look at it this way, Zeph. We've got real live aliens to study. Think of all the tech we could learn about." Nova chimed in, her tone cautious. "But can we trust them? They did try to steal our atmosphere." "That's why we're here," Aura added. "The adults may be handling the official stuff, but they need us to really understand the Vexthalians." Zephyr nodded, a determined glint in her eye. "You're right. If anyone can figure out these overgrown bugs, it's us. Team, let's get to work." As the children approached the Vexthalian encampment, they were met by a sight that stopped them in their tracks. Alongside the towering insectoid warriors were smaller figures, Vexthalian children. Yuki, who had insisted on joining the older kids, gasped in surprise. "They have kids too? But I thought—" Ren put a protective arm around his sister. "Looks like we've all got a lot to learn." Admiral Krozak, his exoskeleton still bearing scars from the crash, approached the human delegation. His mandibles clicked nervously as he addressed Zephyr. "Young one, we owe you and your people a great debt, and a greater apology." Zephyr stood her ground, eyes narrowed. "Yeah, well, trying to suffocate us wasn't cool, but I guess we're willing to listen." As human and Vexthalian children began to cautiously interact, an incredible thing happened. The universal translator, which had struggled with the complexities of adult communication, seemed to work flawlessly between the young of both species. A small Vexthalian, its carapace a shimmering blue, approached Yuki. In a voice that sounded like chiming bells, it spoke, "Your world is so wet and green. It's beautiful." Yuki's eyes widened. "Really? Don't you have plants on your world?" The alien child's antennae drooped. "Not anymore. Our ancestors, they weren't very careful with our resources." This revelation sent a ripple through both groups. The human children exchanged shocked glances as they began to understand the deeper reasons behind the Vexthalian invasion. Aura stepped forward, her face a mix of anger and compassion. "So you came here to take our resources? Because you used up all of yours?" Admiral Krozak's many eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of distress. "It is the way of our empire. Or it was. Until we met you. Never have we encountered a species so innovative, so adaptable." Nova's eyes narrowed. "And you thought it was okay to just take from others? To destroy whole worlds?" The Admiral's exoskeleton seemed to shrink under the weight of shame. I was wrong. We all were. Seeing your world, your children, fight with such spirit, it has awakened something long dormant in our species." As the conversation deepened, both human and Vexthalian adults watched in amazement. The children, unburdened by years of diplomatic protocol or ingrained prejudices, were bridging gaps that seemed insurmountable just days ago. Ren, his natural curiosity overcoming his initial wariness, had engaged a group of Vexthalian tech specialists. "So, how does your FTL drive work? And what's the deal with those mindbreaker things?" To everyone's surprise, the Vexthalians eagerly shared their knowledge. It seemed that the concept of scientific collaboration, long lost in their hierarchical society, was being rediscovered through these interactions. Meanwhile, Aura and Nova had gathered a group of both human and Vexthalian children near the edge of the Amazon rainforest. "Okay, everyone," Aura announced. "We're going to try something. Let's all hold hands, or claws, or whatever." As the mixed group formed a circle, Nova closed her eyes and focused. "Can you feel it? The life of this place?" To the Vexthalian children, it was a revelation. Many of them had never experienced a thriving ecosystem before. Tears, a concept foreign to their species until now, began to form in their compound eyes. One of the alien children, overwhelmed by emotion, burst out, "We want to help, to make things green again." This sentiment quickly spread among the Vexthalian youth. What had begun as a tense first meeting was rapidly evolving into an impromptu cultural exchange and environmental restoration summit. Back at the main encampment, President Thunderbolt arrived with a delegation of world leaders. They found Admiral Krozak engaged in deep conversation with Zephyr and her friends. The president cleared his throat. "I see you've started negotiations without us." Zephyr turned, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Oh, we're way past negotiations, Mr. President. We're planning the future." Admiral Krozak nodded, a gesture he had picked up from observing the humans. "Indeed, your young ones have shown us a path we had long forgotten. A path of cooperation, of renewal." The world leaders exchanged baffled glances. General Novaforge, who had accompanied the president, couldn't suppress a grin. "Told you they'd handle it, sir." As the day progressed, the impromptu gathering evolved into a full-scale brainstorming session. Human and Vexthalian children worked side by side, drafting plans for everything from interstellar cultural exchange programs to joint ecological restoration projects. Zephyr, standing atop a piece of world-breaker debris, addressed the mixed crowd. "All right, everyone, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. But together, I think we can do something amazing. Who's with me?" The cheer that arose was deafening, a blend of human voices and Vexthalian clicks and chirps that symbolized the dawn of a new era. As night fell, Admiral Krozak gazed up at the stars, Lieutenant Mira by his side. "You know," he mused, "in all our conquests, we never once considered asking for help." Myra's tentacles waved thoughtfully. "Perhaps, my lord, that is why the Empire has stagnated. We forgot how to learn." Back in her treehouse, Zephyr flopped onto her beanbag chair, exhausted but exhilarated. Her communicator buzzed with messages from her friends around the world, all sharing similar stories of breakthrough and connection. As she drifted off to sleep, Zephyr couldn't help but smile. The invasion that had threatened to end their world had instead opened up the entire galaxy, and she, along with kids around the globe, was right at the heart of it all. The future, once so terrifying, now gleamed with possibilities as bright as the stars themselves. In the weeks following the Vexthalian invasion, Earth underwent a transformation unlike anything in human history. The initial fear and mistrust gave way to an unprecedented era of cooperation and cultural exchange, with the world's children leading the charge. Zephyr Quasar stood atop a hill overlooking what was once the crash site of the Worldbreaker. Now, it bustled with activity as humans and Vexthalians worked side by side, transforming the alien wreckage into a symbol of unity, the first Intergalactic Youth Academy. "I still can't believe this is happening," Zephyr muttered into her communicator, which now sported several Vexthalian upgrades. Ren's voice crackled through, tinged with excitement. "Tell me about it. I'm in the middle of a quantum computing workshop with some Vexthalian tech whizzes. This stuff makes our old systems look like abacuses." "That's great, Ren," Zephyr replied. "But remember why we're doing this. It's not just about cool tech, right?" Aura chimed in from the Amazon. "It's about saving both our worlds. Speaking of which, you guys have got to see what we're doing here." In the heart of the rainforest, Aura and Nova stood in a clearing surrounded by a mix of earth plants and alien flora. Vexthalian botanists hovered nearby, their compound eyes wide with wonder. Nova grinned as she manipulated a strange, shimmering device. "Watch this," she exclaimed. A pulse of energy rippled out from the device, and the plants around them began to grow at an accelerated rate. Trees shot upward, flowers bloomed in seconds, and even the alien plants seemed to thrive in the supercharged environment. "Incredible," a Vexthalian scientist chittered. "With this technology, we could restore our homeworld's ecosystem in a matter of years rather than centuries." Aura high-fived her sister. "And the best part? It's all powered by clean energy. No more resource depletion." Meanwhile, in Neo-Tokyo, Yuki led a group of human and Vexthalian children through a virtual reality simulation of the Vexthalian homeworld. "Okay, everyone," she announced, her voice filled with determination. "Today, we're going to design the cities of the future. Cities that work with nature, not against it." As the children began to manipulate holographic buildings and landscapes, their ideas flowed freely. Towering arcologies with built-in ecosystems, transportation systems that utilize natural energy flows, and even floating habitats that could adapt to changing environments. A young Vexthalian, its antennae quivering with emotion, turned to Yuki. "I never imagined our world could be like this again. You humans, you've given us hope." Yuki beamed, her eyes shining. "That's what friends do. Now, let's make this design real." Back at the Intergalactic Youth Academy, Zephyr found herself in a meeting with Admiral Krozak, President Thunderbolt, and a holographic projection of the Vexthalian Emperor himself. The Emperor's massive form flickered as he spoke, his voice a blend of clicks and rumbles. "Young Zephyr, your species has shown us the error of our ways. The Vexthalian Empire stands ready to change its path." President Thunderbolt nodded solemnly. "We're prepared to share our resources and knowledge, Your Highness. But we need assurances that this new alliance will be one of equals." Zephyr stepped forward, her chin raised. "With all due respect, Mr. President, Your Highness, I think we're missing the point. This isn't about humans or Vexthalians. It's about the future. All of our futures." She tapped her communicator, and suddenly the room was filled with holographic projections of children from around the world, human and Vexthalian alike. "These are the voices you need to listen to," Zephyr continued. "We're the ones who'll inherit this alliance. And we've got ideas." For the next hour, the world leaders listened in awe as children presented their visions for the future. From interstellar cultural exchange programs to joint scientific missions, from galactic environmental initiatives to new forms of governance that bridge the gap between species. As the presentation concluded, Admiral Krozak's mandibles clicked in what the humans had come to recognize as a smile. "It seems, Your Highness, that we have much to learn from these young ones." The Vexthalian Emperor's hologram flickered as he leaned forward. "Indeed, young Zephyr, would you and your friends be willing to address the Vexthalian High Council? I believe our entire empire needs to hear this message." Zephyr's eyes widened. "Us? Address your... yeah, absolutely." As the meeting adjourned, Zephyr rushed out to share the news with her friends. But as she reached the Academy's main hall, she stopped short. Something felt off. Ren's voice crackled through her communicator, urgent and worried. "Zeph, we've got a problem. Some of the old guard Vexthalians, they're not happy about these changes. There's talk of a coup." Zephyr's heart raced. Just when things were looking up, a new threat emerged. But as she looked around at the human and Vexthalian children working together, laughing and building a shared future, she knew they couldn't give up. "All right, team," she said, her voice steady despite her fears. "Looks like we've got one more battle to fight. But this time, we're not alone. And we're not just saving Earth. We're saving the entire Vexthalian Empire." As word spread of the looming crisis, children around the world, human and Vexthalian alike, began to mobilize. The bonds they'd formed, the trust they'd built, would now be put to the ultimate test. The fate of two civilizations once again hung in the balance. But this time, the children of Earth weren't facing an invasion. They were leading a revolution, one of ideas, of hope, and of a future where the stars themselves were within reach. As night fell on Earth, Zephyr gazed up at the sky, now dotted with the lights of Vexthalian ships. Tomorrow, they would face their greatest challenge yet. But somehow, with her friends by her side and the combined ingenuity of two species at their fingertips, she felt ready for anything. "Look out, universe," she whispered. "Here we come." The Vexthalian High Council chamber buzzed with tension. Holographic projections of Zephyr and her team stood before the assembled alien dignitaries, their young faces set with determination. Zephyr took a deep breath. "Members of the High Council, we stand at a crossroads. The old ways of conquest and destruction have brought us to the brink of disaster. But together, we've found a new path." As she spoke, images flashed around the chamber, thriving ecosystems on once barren Vexthalian colonies, joint human-Vexthalian scientific breakthroughs, and children of both species learning and playing together. Ren stepped forward, his voice strong despite the nervousness evident in his fidgeting hands. Our technologies complement each other. Human creativity and Vexthalian efficiency. Together, we're unstoppable. Aura and Nova joined in, their words overlapping in their excitement. We've already begun restoring ecosystems on Earth and Vextalia. Imagine what we could do for the entire galaxy. Yuki, the youngest of the group, spoke last. Her voice was quiet but filled with conviction. We're not just two species anymore. We're becoming something new, something better. Please, give us a chance to show you. As the children's presentation ended, a hush fell over the chamber. Then, slowly, a sound began to build. The clicking of mandibles and the rustling of wings. It was applause, Vexthalian style. The Emperor rose, his massive form towering over the council. My people, he intoned. These children speak wisdom beyond their years. I propose we put it to a vote. Shall we embrace this new future or cling to our old ways? Tension mounted as the votes were cast. Zephyr and her friends held their breath, acutely aware that the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. Finally, the results appeared on a massive holographic display. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of clicks and chirps. The vote was overwhelming. The Vexthalian Empire would embrace change. Back on Earth, cheers erupted from every corner of the globe. Humans and Vexthalians alike celebrated the dawn of a new era. In the Amazon, Aura and Nova danced with their alien friends as the rainforest around them seemed to pulse with joy. New plants, a hybrid of Earth and Vexthalian species, bloomed in vibrant colors never before seen on either world. We did it, Aura shouted, hugging her sister tightly. Nova grinned, tears of joy streaming down her face. No sis, we're just getting started. In Neo-Tokyo, Ren and Yuki stood atop a skyscraper, watching as Vexthalian ships performed aerial acrobatics in celebration. Streams of shimmering energy painted the sky in dazzling patterns. It's so beautiful, Yuki whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. Ren nodded, a proud smile on his face. And to think, this is just the beginning. Imagine what we'll achieve in 10 years, or 100. At the Intergalactic Youth Academy, now officially inaugurated, Zephyr found a quiet moment amidst the celebrations. She sat in her old treehouse, gazing up at the stars that now seemed closer than ever. Her communicator buzzed. It was Admiral Krozak. Young Zephyr, the alien's voice was filled with emotion. We owe you and your friends a debt we can never repay. You've not only saved your world, but OURS as well. Zephyr smiled. That's what friends do, Admiral. So, what's next for the former conqueror of worlds? Krozak's mandibles clicked in what Zephyr now recognized as laughter. The Emperor has appointed me as the liaison for our new joint scientific initiatives. It seems I have much to learn from your scientists and your children. As the night wore on, the celebrations gradually quieted. A sense of awe settled over the planet as the full implications of recent events sank in. In the White House, President Thunderbolt sat with his advisors, poring over plans for the future. I never thought I'd say this, he mused, but I think we need to seriously consider lowering the voting age. These kids have earned a say in their future. General Novaforge nodded in agreement. Sir, I believe we're witnessing the birth of a new generation, one that thinks beyond borders, beyond planets, beyond species. Across the globe, in homes and schools, in cities and villages, children dreamed of the future. And for the first time in a long while, those dreams were filled with hope and endless possibilities. In classrooms, curriculums were hastily being rewritten. History books now had chapters on the invasion that united worlds. Science textbooks included sections on Vexthalian biology and technology. And in every school, exchange programs were being established to welcome young aliens to Earth and send human children to the stars. As dawn broke on this new era, Zephyr gathered her friends for a video call. Their faces, human and Vexthalian alike, filled her screen. So, she said, a mischievous glint in her eye, who's up for a field trip to Alpha Centauri? Laughter erupted from the group, a blend of human chuckles and alien clicks that symbolized the new harmony between their species. Rin grinned. I've already started packing my quantum toolkit. Aura and Nova chimed in simultaneously. We call dibs on cataloging the alien plants. Yuki bounced with excitement. Ooh, can we design a city on another planet? Please. As the children chatted excitedly about their future adventures, Zephyr felt a warmth in her chest. The invasion that had threatened to end their world had instead opened up the entire universe. And they, the children once dismissed as helpless, were leading the way. Look out, galaxy, Zephyr whispered, her eyes fixed on the brightening sky. Here we come. And so, as Earth embraced its new role in the cosmic community, a new chapter in human history began. It was a future shaped not by conflict and conquest, but by curiosity, cooperation, and the boundless imagination of the young. The stars, once distant and unreachable, now beckoned with endless possibilities. And humanity, hand in hand with their new Vexthalian friends, took its first bold steps into a larger, more wondrous universe. The invasion was over. The adventure was just beginning.